The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society, and today we are going to be reading an email from one of our longtime listeners who is actually a federal employee. And since the federal government reopened this past week, we wanted to let our listeners know what the real impact of the federal shutdown was on the working employees of the federal government. And this email also gives us a little bit of insight into what maybe the spin is going to be as it relates to the federal employees. So this is from T, who lives in Virginia. T writes, while listening to the latest published podcast, Dr. Weldon asked about whether or not the courts would still be working when their funding ran out. And you mentioned that they were going to continue getting paid. I can't recall if you brought this up previously or not, but the whole furloughed versus exempt versus accepted status is very immediately relevant to me, and I thought I'd mention the accepted group since that's where I fall. I believe you're familiar with the difference between the three groups, and historically we've either been furloughed or exempt and still getting paid. But in this situation, the accepted status has been far more prevalent than ever before, and I thought it worth mentioning. From what I can find, there are over 690,000 federal employees currently in accepted status. With your resources, you may be able to turn up a more accurate number. Mine could be incorrect, but I know it's very high. The government is still running relatively smoothly because so many of us are required to work just without any pay, unlike exempt employees. One massive frustration was hearing one of Trump's people claim, see, the shutdown isn't having any real impact. Of course it's not, because most of us are still working. I can already see that turning into a talking point. If federal employees actually did anything, wouldn't we be seeing an impact by now? So let's cut more jobs. And I wouldn't be surprised if they try to spin unpaid labor as savings before back pay is even processed, assuming that we actually get it. Furloughed employees can at least take on side work, substitute teaching, Uber driving, even temporary employment. They're still hurting financially. They have options to help defray the cost. Accepted employees don't. We either keep working without pay or we refuse and become unworking furloughed. The group Trump has stated that maybe they don't deserve back pay and are highest at risk of being outright fired. When I manage to look at it without too much bitterness, I have to admit it's a fascinating situation. Frustrating and unfair, but still fascinating. And that's from an actual worker in the federal government. And I agree with him that they could turn this into a talking point. So let's hear what the rest of the panel has to say.
Yeah. Well, I noticed how Trump is the one who apparently decides whether people are deserving of pay or not, which is, again, against the law. And Congress is not standing up for the federal worker. And no one, I mean, at least in the legacy media or so-called, seems to be explaining how government actually functions. And among the individuals who have been furloughed or I'm not sure, but are the people who attend to our nuclear missiles. And they were originally discharged under DOGE, and then they had to run around, DOGE and the federal government had to run around and rehire them and find them again. And now they have been dismissed again, which certainly suggests to me that no one has learned anything, which is not a surprise. The emailer has exposed an enormous issue that is being hidden from the American people. And if most federal government employees are still in place and are working without any pay, then the federal government, of course, is still functioning, contrary to Trump's claims that and the Republicans' claims that these jobs are not needed and that the government is getting smaller. And the government is not getting smaller. It just, these jobs are being hidden. I mean, the people aren't being paid, and it looks like the government is getting smaller, but the people are still there and they're still working. but they can claim, well, see, all this was redundant and all this was really fraud or grift or whatever it was, abuse, but it's not. The people are there and the government is functioning. And Trump, as usual, is misdirecting and lying to the people. So, Mark, how does this is why Trump says, well, I don't like people who are educated. Well, yeah, because if a person becomes educated in how government actually works and what is actually required, then nobody would have, or no, not nobody, but most individuals would not have voted for any of this. And I was thinking back to an earlier podcast that we did. I find it very, very difficult to determine. I don't think that the people who voted for Trump this time were, I don't know, I don't think that they voted for this. And I don't think that they really were thinking about what they were voting for. They were watching Fox, they were listening to Trump's talking points and becoming swayed by his glib assurances and not following that he did not have any single plan. And just like with Marjorie Taylor Greene, when she was on the conference call with Mike Johnson and the other Republicans in the conference, and she said to him, what is the plan to replace Obamacare and replace the premiums and bring the premium cuts and bring the costs back down? And Johnson didn't have any answers. There is no plan. There's no plan to do anything. No. Trump never had a plan. He might have had concepts of a plan.
No.
But, I mean, they've never had any plan for anything except to destroy. And that's all they apparently know how to do.
Right. And, I think the thing that, and you make a very good point. One of the things that struck me about this email, and just for transparency, I know T. I've known T for over about 20 some odd years. Very good guy, nice family. Good hard worker, very, very dedicated to his job. When somebody says, see, the shutdown isn't having any real impact. Yeah, that's the sentence number one. Sentence number two is, that's because you've got people working for nothing. That's the second sentence that they failed to bring out. And yeah, that's their excuse. Well, hey, since it's not impacting, we don't need all these people. See, they're furloughed. But they forget to mention that they're still on the job. So we could get rid of all those jobs. And yes, you're right. People that watch Fox and people that listen to the talking points of some of these sycophants are going to say, yeah, we don't need all those jobs until they're actually gone, until they're truly actually gone. And people like T, he's got a family. He's caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't think he wants to work for nothing. And let's remember, he's got to spend his own dime to go into work.
Nor should he work for nothing. He's working for the people. And we want to pay him. I don't want to pay the House $174,000 per person to sit home 100 days out of 120 because Mike Johnson won't let them go to work. I want to pay T because he's at work.
I would rather pay him. Because he's far more valuable than anybody else. But I think the thing he's bringing up is in this whole thing is there's furloughed, then there's exempt who get paid, and now there's this exempted, which is sort of a different classification. I think he's bringing that to light, the importance of the American people understanding that new classification. That's a classification that you're not exempt, because exempt, you're still going to get paid. Furloughed, you can go out and get yourself go find yourself another job. You can take on side work. Exempted, you cannot take on side work. And you don't get paid. It is the worst classification you could be in this situation. I could take furloughed. If you tell me I can go out and teach or something like that, great. Hey, I can bridge the gap until you open it back up. If I'm exempt and you're paying me anyway, oh, what do I care? It's this large group, and T's calling it 690,000. Yes, T, I believe that is more than that. We will look into that. That basically are told, come to work, you're not going to get paid, and if you don't come to work, well, guess what? You might lose your job. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I think that the Trump's response would be to fly a cartoon airplane over everybody and dump shit on them.
I
And
have one question.
that basically is his attitude towards working people. I don't think he gives a shit about working people, whether it's federal workers or anybody else.
May
Go
I
ahead.
break in with one question? Sorry. Is this a new category? No,
I
but
don't
it's
believe
an
it is.
expanding category, correct?
It's an expanding category.
Greatly expanding.
I would say that.
What were the numbers under Biden and Obama? Do we know?
I have no idea.
It'd be interesting to compare Trump 1 to Obama and to Biden and to Trump 2 and see how much this is ballooning now. And whether Trump tried to balloon it under Trump 1 and was stopped. And if he was stopped, by whom? I just thought of that. Whether this is a brand new category, the way Trump is, now it's the Gulf of Mexico. No, now it's the Gulf of America, the way he was talking to the military on his trip to Japan. And I was looking at their faces, the people standing behind him, and I can't personally wait for him to finish talking because he's so pedantic and how great he is and all this stuff. So, and it occurred to me that just like that, with tearing down the East Wing and doing this and doing that and stopping payments that are already allocated, Trump might well have created a third category. So Scott, what do you think? Do you think that under a Democratic president, if there ever is such a thing, and I understand that Governor Newsom of California has now declared an interest in running in 2028, but as we were talking before, there may not be an election, and even if there is, it may not result in a fair outcome unless it names a Democrat, unless it names a Republican.
Well, we'll hit that topic up. That's like off this. But
well, no, I just wondered if it could be put back so that people who are in the category that T is in are able to be paid back pay and be rehired. If there's any way to fix all this, even though it's going to take a long time.
I don't know about that, Brooke. I mean, we're talking 3 years. Can people like T live without a paycheck for 3 years? I think we come into a moot point. My first thing is that if a Democrat gets into the Oval Office, first thing they should do is bulldoze down the big beautiful ballroom. Anyway,
yeah,
Scott, what's
and
got?
invite the rest of us to help.
Honestly, I don't have much of anything because I think that this is the way this country has been going. It's like unfair practices to workers. We've seen this in the private sector as well, where companies, rather than hire workers that they have to pay benefits to and stuff, instead hire out to temp agencies who provide permanent temps. I mean, have you ever heard of such a thing in your life? And these permanent temps don't get any benefits at all. They don't get time off. They don't get vacations without pay, with pay, I mean. And
sounds like adjuncts.
It is very much like adjuncts, yeah. And that's what anytime these very wealthy business owner types that everybody's always feeding all the time is saying, the business owners are the rich and we have to create jobs and stuff like that. It's just, employee benefits have gotten worse and a bigger part of your paycheck. Everything is sucking. Everything sucks. And the rules are, they call it fair labor practices. I mean, these are the most unfair labor practices, practically an ironic name. And I feel bad for anybody who's caught up in this stuff, but it's certainly nothing I think unusual or out of it just needs to be clarified so people understand what we're talking about. And, I think that 50% of our population doesn't have the empathy to give a fuck about it at all, right? And that if it doesn't happen to them, they don't care. So, maybe we should talk about something else for a while.
And well, and in addition, the type of business practice that you're discussing, both of you, shows absolutely why a CEO cannot be running the federal government, and why federal government is not like a for-profit business.
Absolutely.
These are not the same things at all.
Different value system altogether, and and no parallels.
Absolutely. Right. And people don't understand that. So I know, T, I know we didn't get to all your question. Maybe we can finish this another time and do more examination, more research into the question, like the numbers, the statistics, because you said this is an expanding category.
Well, as far as I can see, it's an expanding category, but it's something that would take quite a bit of research to figure out. You'd have to go through the historical shutdowns and go by the Office of Personnel and Budget to be able to tell how many were this, how many were that.
That would be an interesting paper to write.
And you know what, Brooke? I think that's a great idea. You go right ahead and you do that. I don't have time for that. But yes, it's regardless. I'm living in today, and if T is telling me 690,000 people working for the government are not getting paid but are required to work, or there's consequences for them not to come, that's what I have the problem for.
I'd also like to know what jobs these people are in and how critical their services are.
Well, I know what job he's in, but we're not going to mention it.
No, of course not. I'm just thinking about it. I mean, if the people who are looking after the nuclear, our nuclear armory, I mean, you can't just not have that, but apparently that's totally fine. Well, I mean, it just shows the technocracy that we have, and the who is it, Dunning-Kruger effect.
Right, and look, farmers are having a really hard time right now, but hopefully that'll stop with some kind of deal with China, at least for soybeans. But farmers have had a famously bad time of late, and the FDA, I forget who it is. It's in charge of helping them get through these hard times by giving them advice and financial support and things like that. They're all out of work. So there's nobody to go to. I mean, the ripple effect here is tremendous, and it hurts everybody. And obviously, if you don't have money to spend, you're not boosting the economy in any kind of way. And that means that the person who you ordinarily pours you coffee in the morning is also out of work, because there's no need for them to pour coffee anymore. And, it just spirals out of control very quickly, I think. And I don't think that we're at the end of this at all.
We're not.
I really only think we're at the beginning, or maybe if we're lucky, the middle of this furlough, shutdown, whatever you want to call it. And I do think that this is a planned thing, that they wanted to do this because they want to get rid of people who work for the federal government. And when they rehire them, they're going to be rehiring incompetent people who don't know how to do the job, but are extremely loyal to Trump. And I don't have anything to add to that.
Well, remember, Scott Bessent is also a soybean farmer.
So, my God, talk about insult to injury.
I know. That was awful. Well, he's awful. So thank you, T. And I hope that we answered your question at least somewhat. We appreciate your email. And thank you to everyone for spending some time with us on the Nova Society. And we do hope to see you again very soon.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!